everybody, this is Flake, and I'm here to give you my first ever deck list overview. We're going to be taking a look at my Fog deck that I've been playing on Ranked to some decent success, usually around the rank 11-12 area, and it's been good against the current meta. Meta today being June, first week of June-ish, today being June 7th. So let's go ahead and take a look at Flake's Fog Fiesta. So you've seen that there's a lot of people playing Fog, or it's getting a little bit more prominent. The patch notes have come out saying that Foglets are going to be a little harder to kill. So I figured I'd give you a list that I've been playing recently that sort of can actually carry over to the next patch and the next round of changes, and should still be pretty effective. So we're going to look at the cards here. We've got in the silver slot, obviously 3 Foglets. Fantastic beings. We've got 2 Necker Warriors to build up our Fog army in our deck to about 5 or 7, preferably 7, obviously. 2 Harpies. We got 2 Arch Griffins. And down here, 3 Fogs and 2 Thunderbolt Potions. Now, people might say 2 Thunderbolt Potions. Isn't that a little risky, especially if your Foglets get dealt with Clear Skies? Well, not necessarily, mainly because we have a lot of other units on the board that will spawn 3 wide. That is 1, 2, 3. And obviously the first ones here being the Crones. So the Crones can be hit and targeted with Thunderbolt Potion from one turn to the next. You drop them, you Thunderbolt Potion them. Same thing with the Harpies. The Harpies will drop 2 eggs, you Thunderbolt Potion. Same thing also here with your Woodland Spirit. Woodland Spirit drops 3 Rabid Wolves, stay on the board no matter what weather is posted on them, and you go ahead and Thunderbolt Potion it. Doesn't always have to be the Foglets. In fact, your Foglets are probably the last units that you want to buff because of the fact that they die when Fog's removed. Now, when the patch comes out and that becomes a little bit more of a difficult task to remove Foglets, you could be a little bit more liberal with buffing them, but for now, pre-patch when this video is being made, that's how I do it. So that's the bronze. If I'm talking about the Clear Skies here, this here is actually a card that we'll talk about a little later in terms of its usefulness. So off to the silver slots, the Crones, fantastic cards. This is both tempo and it's both deck thinning. So this is almost a staple in most, if not all, monster decks. It is just way too good. Here, let's get that. We can't get that. All right, well, we want to... my OCD is sort of kicking in there. So basket face here is just going to be on the side. No problem. So Water Hag, fantastic mage card. Clear Skies, Lacerate, or Torrential Rain. Now your first thought here is that Clear Skies, yes, in certain scenarios, that is exactly the play that you want to make. But I have found more often than not that the use for this card is going to be Lacerate. There's a lot of row stacking that goes on. Units go 6, 7 deep on a row. That Lacerate is just absolutely killer as a big tempo swing to just play it out. Also, Drop in Rain is going to kill opponent's Harpies on the board and make sure that they don't carry over. So think about it. Do the math in your head. This is a great card that you want to have. Manticore Venom. The Fiend. The Fiend is a fantastic, if not one of my favorite silver cards because of the fact that it cuts strength in half and toggles a unit's lock. So is that dwarf deck getting a little bit too resilient for your liking and getting too buffed? Drop a Fiend. If Nilfgaard, if one of those Impair Brigades are getting too big, drop a Fiend. Even if he goes ahead and drops a Combat Engineer on it to lock it up, to make it resilient, go ahead and lock it up, remove that. This is a fantastic card that I like to play to sort of get a little bit of a tempo swing, and it's only going to get better. It's been buffed to 7, so think about that. Necker Warriors, obvious choice here to build your army. We already went through that. And Aeromancy. Aeromancy's in there purely for the fact that I want to maximize the number of Fogs. You want to exhaust your opponent's Clear Sky abilities and weather removal in round 1 as much as possible because you're going to want to be able to deal that damage in round 3. But we'll get to that later. Now the MVP of this deck and why it makes it such a fiesta is because we've got Triss Butterfly spell. With all those pretty butterflies, having a little fiesta over her head. Basically, this here is such, in my opinion, a great card, especially in this archetype. Mainly because you're going to be spitting out 2 spots on the board over and over and over again, and if they run out of actual clearage for this, she is just going to snowball this into a mean board that you get, and you'll have huge board numbers, huge board presence, and it only gets better and better as the Foglets catch up to your 5s, your 7s, and your 6s, etc., and you'll have a great board. Now, does that make you vulnerable to something like Scorch? Sure. But think about it. You're going to be busting these up to maybe 5 or 6 at most, or 7. There's going to most likely be opponent units on the board that are more that are scorchable versus your lower units here. And you can always sort of just toggle that around with your Thunderbolt Potion to put some things out of the Scorch range. But that's just Scorch. Who plays Scorch, right? Not going to go there. That said, she is a definite MVP in this deck, so you want to be mulliganing for her hard because she needs to make an appearance in round 1 and round 3. Now, how do you do that? Well, that's with Renew. Renew is going to grab Triss back. That is your prime candidate. Even if your opponent has something big, you want to get that Triss. I mean, unless it makes sense to drop an Igni because he's got 3 10s on the board in a row, go for it. But that is definitely what you want to do, play Triss twice. Gales is just a little bit more insurance that you'll be able to draw Triss or that Renew in round 3. So smarter players will know how to play, how to drop these on the board, or veteran players will know how the sequencing and how to save things, etc. But that's the basic of it. And of course, the Woodland Spirit, very straightforward. It's Fog, it's Rabid Wolves. It's a big tempo swing just with this. So now, basically, how does this deck work? It's very simple. You want to be dropping Fog early on in the game. Get your Foglets out. Have your opponent waste as much of their weather mitigation as possible. Have them use it as much in round 1 as possible so that you're free to play in round 2 and 3. Triss should always be your first play. Just drop it on the board. If she gets shackled, she gets shackled, but a lot of people do not play that many shackles. I'll be completely honest with you. At least I've not come into contact with them. So as your Necker Warriors build your Foglets and Triss is boosting it all, make sure that you have the ideal in your opening hand is about 3 or 4 instances of Fog generation. Now you have a ton of them. You've got Dagon, you've got 3 Bronze Fogs, you've got Woodland Spirit, that there is 5, and you've got an Aeromancy. Amazing, right? So that's 6 instances of Fog that you can dump on the board, and a potential rain from Water Hag. So get those Foglets out, get them built up, get them growing with Triss, and you'll see how your opponent starts to freak out a bit as he's running out of options to clear your board. Your Thunderbolt Potion, again, things dropping 3 wide will be great. This is kind of a later round move to just boost things, but you should be able to keep up with strength on the board, and your Fog should be able to keep opponent's strength under control. Now, when it comes to sequencing this out, you have your Triss Butterfly on the board. You want to get your Foglets out. These 3 are the first Fogs that you want to play early in the game. And when it comes down to using Dagon, I'm very much against keeping Dagon in your hand late game. This isn't closed beta. This is going to be a fantastic card. You want to play this out earlier than later, mainly because you want to keep as much information concealed from your opponent. So he knows you have Fog with Dagon. So why not get this out earlier so that your Woodland Spirit or your Aeromancy can, come out as more of a surprise later in the game. Right? It only makes sense because he'll be counting your Fogs. You'll see 3 of these. He'll see Dagon. He'll think Woodland Spirit, but he'll never, Aeromancy. But by then he'll be SOL in terms of dealing with Fog, hopefully. These are just a clear on the row. Now, what I was talking about First Light is mainly because in the, couple dozen games that I've played with this deck, by the way, it was about a 65 to 67% win ratio on ranked. This card has not really been anything more than a Clear Skies, never a Rally. You're not really getting much value with Rally. You might get a Harpy, you might get an Arch Griffin, but if you're looking for an Arch Griffin, you might as well just Clear Skies, right? Not risk it. Getting a Necker Warrior, maybe. But this here is probably the card that you're most looking to ditch because you have Water Hag and you have 2 row-specific weather clears. And if all your power is likely going to be spotted onto 1 row with all those Foglets, these Archgriffins are decent enough, and your Water Hag can probably deal with a Ragnarug if possible. Now, I kept it in here because a lot of people are playing Ragnarug, at least against me. So I kept it in just to deal with it and left this as a Lacerate, because of all the row stacking. So that said, you can make your own decision. Depends on the meta, obviously. A lot of winning on ranked is meta analysis. And moving along, in later rounds, depending on what your opponent is, if it's something like Northern Realms, you want to bleed them out. in round 2 and keep some fog for round 3. But your money shot here is to hopefully get ahead in cards and go ahead and hit Gales into Renew, into Triss, or just Renew into Triss. But she's going to be great. If there's going to be an Igni play and your opponent played Igni, steal an Igni. I mean, I can't speak for 100% of the games, but more often than not, Renew and Triss go hand in hand. Bust her out, drop the fog, and make sure that your foglets start growing. The other thing that you want to keep in mind is that the Woodland Spirit and the Harpies drop 1 strength units, so she'll have to spend a turn buffing those up to foglet range before you get that snowball going. So keep that in mind. You don't want to drop this, let's say, last unless it wins you the game, and then expect for some serious value out of Triss on those. The value comes when she starts buffing, 5 or 7 foglets. So that's pretty much straightforward in this. I've had a lot of decent success with this deck, and if you want to talk about card replacements, it's difficult because there's no way that you can really get rid of Triss, mainly because she's an MVP, a backbone of this deck. But if you're looking to maybe ditch a Fiend, grab a Cleaver is an option. When you want to talk about getting rid of these 3 Crones, Crones are phenomenal cards for monsters, so it's really difficult to replace them. They're such amazing tempo and deck thinning cards that you'll see them almost in every monster deck you play. They're just fantastic. But if you want to look at silver options, I'd probably stay away from Commander's Horn, mainly because you'd be tempted to play them on your built-up foglets, and 1 Clear Skies will just put that card to rest. Skeleton Storm, not bad as a replacement in the silver slot, especially if you can get Aeromancy out and pull it out twice. That could save the day. Scorch isn't even that bad of an option here, mainly because of the fact that even with the Triss growing your units, it'll take several turns before you get into any range where that's going to become an immense game changer. And if it does become a problem, Thunderbolt Potion will fix that by just spreading that away. And other than that, I mean, you want to throw in a Roach, it's up to you. After that, there's not many huge cards. Fire Elemental, maybe. But anyways, you'll sort of assess the meta and make your own decision from there. That said, like I said, good success against Nilfgaard. I've had a lot of fun. I've had a lot of success. More wins than losses. And, Nilfgaard's all over the meta. All over the ladder. What else have I played against? Northern Realms, if you play it properly, you should be okay. Bleed them out round 2. Drop a Woodland Spirit or some type of fog generation with tons of foglets in round 3 for a swing. Keep fog on them. Should be okay, but it is a tough matchup. And other than that, I've against Frost, against Monsters Frost type decks, had no trouble. And oops, we didn't want to do that. So have fun with it. It's Flake Fog Fiesta. You can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/WatchFlake, or you can get me on Twitter @WatchFlake. So adios, thank you for tuning in, and until next time.